Imagine if, for just 3 days, you spoke to yourself the way you would speak to your best friend. Imagine if, instead of doubt, you filled your mind with encouragement. Instead of criticism, you replaced your thoughts with belief. The way we talk to ourselves determines the way we see the world, and the way we see the world shapes the actions we take. So I have a challenge for you, just 3 days. 3 days of speaking to yourself with kindness, confidence, and courage. 3 days of rewiring the way you think about yourself. Because if you can change your self-talk, even for a short time, you might just realize how powerful you really are. Every thought we entertain, every word we speak to ourselves becomes the lens through which we see the world. Our internal dialogue is not just background noise. It is the script we follow, the foundation upon which our confidence, decisions, and actions are built. When we consistently tell ourselves we're not good enough, not capable, or not worthy, we reinforce a reality where those statements feel true. But what if those thoughts were never facts to begin with? What if they were just stories we kept repeating until they became familiar? Think about how a child learns about themselves. If they are constantly told they are smart, they start to believe it. If they are told they are a failure, that belief seeps into their identity. As adults, we continue to internalize the messages we tell ourselves every day. The way we frame challenges, setbacks, and opportunities is shaped by the words we choose when we think about them. If we approach difficulties with a defeated mindset, we will always find reasons to confirm our limitations. If we approach them with confidence, we begin to see possibilities we never noticed before. It's not just about positive thinking, it's about accurate thinking. When we talk to ourselves in a way that reinforces our strengths, acknowledges our efforts, and reminds us of our ability to learn and grow, we create a mental environment where success becomes more attainable. The words we use internally create a feedback loop. Negative words keep us trapped in fear and hesitation. Empowering words push us forward. Our reality is not fixed. It is shaped by the narrative we choose to embrace. And that narrative begins with the way we talk to ourselves every single day. Self-doubt is not an inherent trait. It is a learned behavior, a pattern that forms over time through repetition. The more we question our abilities, the more we reinforce the belief that we are not capable. Our minds are incredibly adaptive, and they take cues from the messages we repeatedly send. When we tell ourselves we are not good enough, our brain internalizes that message and seeks evidence to support it. The more we indulge in negative self-talk, the more it becomes a habit, an automatic response that limits our potential before we even take action. But just as self-doubt is learned, so is self-belief. Confidence is not something people are simply born with. It is cultivated through repeated exposure to empowering thoughts and actions. When we start affirming our abilities, acknowledging our strengths, and recognizing our progress, we slowly rewire our minds to operate from a place of self-assurance rather than hesitation. Every time we choose to believe in ourselves, even for a moment, we weaken the grip of doubt and strengthen the foundation of confidence. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with a conscious effort to change the way we speak to ourselves. Instead of reinforcing fear, we can reinforce courage. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can focus on what we have. The brain is malleable, and the more we practice self-belief, the more natural it becomes. Over time, what once felt like forced optimism turns into an unshakable mindset. We are not bound by the doubts of our past. We have the power to rewrite our internal narrative one thought at a time until belief becomes our default state. Your mind is always listening, always absorbing, always adapting to the messages you feed it. Every thought you repeat, every phrase you affirm, becomes a command that your brain takes seriously. It doesn't distinguish between truth and falsehood. It simply follows the instructions you give it. If you constantly tell yourself you're not smart enough, not strong enough, or not capable, your mind will accept that as reality and adjust your behavior to align with it. But the same principle works in the opposite direction. If you consistently affirm your abilities, remind yourself of your strengths, and reinforce positive beliefs, your mind will begin to shift accordingly. This is not wishful thinking, it is neuroscience. The brain creates neural pathways based on repetition. The more a thought is repeated, the stronger the pathway becomes, making that thought feel natural and automatic. Negative self-talk strengthens pathways of doubt and hesitation. Positive self-talk strengthens pathways of confidence and resilience. This is why professional athletes, top executives, and high achievers deliberately practice mental conditioning. They understand that success starts in the mind long before it materializes in reality. The power of repetition cannot be underestimated. If you constantly hear yourself saying, "I can't do this," that phrase becomes ingrained in your identity. But if you begin saying, "I am capable and I will figure this out," your brain will start working toward that outcome. It won't happen instantly, but over time, your inner dialogue will shape your actions, your decisions, and ultimately your future. The key is consistency, because what you tell yourself repeatedly, whether good or bad, becomes the foundation upon which your life is built. Imagine if you spoke to yourself the way you would speak to someone you deeply care about. If a friend came to you feeling discouraged, would you tell them they're not good enough? Would you remind them of every mistake they've ever made? Of course not. You would encourage them, remind them of their strengths, and help them see their potential. Yet, when it comes to ourselves, we often do the opposite. We criticize, doubt, and tear ourselves down in ways we would never do to someone else. The truth is, the words we use internally shape our self-image. If we constantly tell ourselves we're failing, we reinforce that belief. But if we start speaking to ourselves with the same kindness and encouragement we offer others, we begin to reframe our reality. Instead of saying, "I always mess up," we can say, "I'm learning and I will get better." Instead of, "I'm not good enough," we can say, "I have everything I need to grow." This small shift in language has a profound impact on our confidence, our decisions, and ultimately our success. Speaking to yourself with kindness doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means recognizing that growth happens through encouragement, not self-punishment. It means choosing words that empower rather than words that discourage. If you wouldn't say it to someone you love, don't say it to yourself. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for how you show up in the world. And when you choose to speak to yourself with belief and compassion, you unlock a mindset that fuels resilience, confidence, and unstoppable progress. Words are not just sounds. They carry energy, intention, and influence. The way you speak to yourself, whether silently in your mind or out loud, directly affects how you feel, how you act, and what you believe is possible. If you constantly use words that diminish your worth, you create an internal environment where doubt thrives. But if you choose words that uplift and empower you, you create a mindset where confidence and growth become the norm. Think about how words shape experiences. A challenge can either be impossible or an opportunity to grow. A mistake can be a failure or a lesson. The words you attach to your experiences define how you perceive them. This is why two people can go through the same situation and have completely different outcomes, because the story they tell themselves about it determines their response. Your words also influence your emotions. Saying, I can't do this, triggers frustration and resignation, while saying, I will find a way, sparks determination and creativity. Over time, these repeated phrases build the foundation of your self-permission. If you keep telling yourself you're not smart enough, strong enough, or worthy enough, those words become a mental prison. But when you consciously choose words that reinforce your potential, you begin to break free from those limitations. It's not about ignoring reality, it's about shaping it. The way you describe yourself, your challenges, and your goals matters. Every word you speak to yourself is a building block for your future. Choose them wisely, because they will either build you up or hold you back. Confidence doesn't start with success. It starts with the conversations you have in your mind. Before you take action, before you step into any challenge, your self-talk has already determined how you will show up. If your inner dialogue is filled with doubt, hesitation, and fear, your actions will reflect that uncertainty. But if you train yourself to speak with assurance, to remind yourself of your strengths, and to reinforce your capability, you build a foundation of confidence that influences every decision you make. Think about the moments when you felt unstoppable. Chances are those moments weren't just about skill or preparation. They were fueled by a belief in yourself. That belief doesn't come from external validation. It comes from the way you talk to yourself daily. The most confident people aren't necessarily the most talented. They are the ones who have mastered the art of self-encouragement. They know that confidence isn't about knowing everything. It's about trusting themselves to figure things out. Your self-talk sets the tone for your actions. When you walk into a room, when you start a project, when you take on a challenge, your mind has already given you a silent pep talk. Positive or negative. If you say, I don't belong here, you'll act accordingly. If you say, I am prepared and I bring value, your body language, energy, and decisions will follow suit. The words you tell yourself create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Speak like someone who believes in their own potential, and soon that belief will become reality. Every time you reinforce a negative belief about yourself, you make it stronger. The more you repeat thoughts like, I always mess up, or I'm not good enough, the more your brain looks for evidence to support them. This is how self-doubt becomes a cycle. It's not always based on truth, but on repetition. The more you say it, the more real it feels. But here's the truth. Just because a thought is familiar doesn't mean it's accurate. The way you speak to yourself has the power to keep you stuck or set you free. When you constantly tell yourself you're not capable, you train your brain to look for signs of failure. When you convince yourself you'll never succeed, you stop trying before you even start. These thoughts become automatic, turning into self-imposed barriers that hold you back from opportunities, growth, and success. But just as negative self-talk creates doubt, positive self-talk creates momentum. Imagine if instead of saying, I can't do this, you started saying, I'm learning how to do this. Instead of, I always fail, you said, every setback is making me stronger. Your brain will start to shift its focus. It will begin to look for proof of your strength, your progress, and your potential. This isn't about ignoring challenges. It's about refusing to let negative narratives control your life. The stories you repeat to yourself shape your actions, and your actions shape your future. If you want a different outcome, start by telling yourself a different story. 3 days may not seem like much, but in that short time, you can begin to shift the trajectory of your life. Repetition is the key to reprogramming your mind, and just 3 days of consistently affirming positive, empowering thoughts about yourself can create a powerful ripple effect. It's not about making drastic changes overnight. It's about setting a new foundation for how you view yourself and your potential. For 3 days, speak to yourself with kindness, encouragement, and belief. Remind yourself of your strengths, your resilience, and your ability to overcome obstacles. Every time doubt creeps in, replace it with a positive affirmation. Every time you catch yourself thinking you're not good enough, remind yourself that growth is a journey, not a destination. In those 3 days, you will start to notice subtle shifts. You'll feel more confident in your abilities. You'll approach challenges with more optimism and determination. You'll recognize that the limitations you thought you had were mostly self-imposed. 3 days of intentional self-talk can create a mindset that starts to look for solutions, that begins to expect success, and that builds the courage to keep moving forward despite obstacles. What's even more powerful is that the effects won't stop after 3 days. Once you start speaking to yourself in a more empowering way, it becomes easier to continue. You've broken the cycle of negative self-talk, and now you have the tools to keep reinforcing a more positive and productive mindset. 3 days might feel like a small step, but it's the first step toward creating lasting change. Your self-talk directly influences your actions and outcomes. The way you speak to yourself determines the choices you make, the risks you take, and the perseverance you exhibit when faced with challenges. If you consistently tell yourself that something is impossible, your mind will work against you, finding every reason why it won't work. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you're capable, your mind will look for ways to prove it true. Think about a time when you were successful at something. Likely, that success didn't happen by accident. It was a result of the belief you had in your own abilities. Even if you didn't know all the answers, your mindset was one of possibility. You didn't let doubts hold you back. The opposite is true for failures or setbacks. If your self-talk is dominated by negative thoughts like, I can't, it's too hard, or I'll never succeed, your actions will mirror that belief. You won't put in the effort, you won't take risks, and you won't push through obstacles the same way you would if you believed in your potential. The key to shifting this pattern lies in recognizing that your actions follow your beliefs. If you want to change your outcomes, you have to change the narrative you tell yourself. Start speaking words that empower, encourage, and elevate you. When you speak to yourself with belief, you create a mindset that is aligned with success, and in turn, your actions reflect that alignment. The power to change your life begins with changing the way you talk to yourself. Changing your self-talk can be the most powerful tool you have for transforming your life. The words you choose to use with yourself, whether positive or negative, become the framework through which you see the world. When you consistently speak to yourself with kindness, confidence, and belief, you lay the groundwork for a future full of possibility. Over time, these words build a mindset that moves from self-doubt to self-assurance, from fear to courage, and from stagnation to growth. Every time you choose empowering words over limiting ones, you reinforce a new way of thinking. It may feel unnatural at first, especially if you've been accustomed to negative self-talk, but with repetition, it becomes your new normal. The more you practice positive self-talk, the more it becomes ingrained in your thinking. Your mind begins to recognize your potential and seeks out opportunities for success rather than focusing on obstacles. The words you speak to yourself aren't just fleeting thoughts. They shape your identity. They define how you see yourself and how you show up in the world. When you consistently reinforce your worth, your capabilities, and your growth, you change the narrative. You move from a place of limitation to one of endless possibility. You start to believe in your own power, and that belief fuels your actions. Change the way you talk to yourself, and you change the course of your life. In just 3 days, you have the power to begin transforming the way you see yourself and the world around you. It all starts with the words you choose to speak to yourself. These words aren't just fleeting thoughts. They are the foundation of your mindset, your confidence, and your success. Every day, you are either reinforcing doubt or building belief, either empowering yourself or holding yourself back. The reality is that you have the ability to reshape your future by changing your inner dialogue. By speaking to yourself with kindness, encouragement, and confidence, you create a mental environment that fosters growth and resilience. This shift doesn't require perfection, it requires consistency. In just 3 days of intentional self-talk, you will begin to unlock new levels of potential you may not even know exist. The words you speak to yourself today are the actions you take tomorrow. So choose your words carefully. Speak to yourself like someone who believes in their own ability to succeed, because when you do, you'll find that your reality begins to reflect that belief, and you will be unstoppable.